Hello and welcome back to another video. I thought it was a long time since I'd done anything boating wise, and as you'll have seen from some of my other videos, I like to occasionally have a look at some of the older glass fibre, smaller budget priced boats out there that are left. And obviously these boats are getting old now. You know, some of them are 50 plus years old, but they're still going strong. And this is another boat that I'd like to have a look at, just in a little bit more depth and detail, because hence the title of this: was this the best boat in its class? And in its day, this was probably the best glass reinforced plastic, or GRP, whatever you want to call it, was the best boat you could probably buy off the shelf. You could go to an outlet and buy this complete with an inboard engine. It was 27 foot long and it was 6'10" beam, so it fitted any of the canals and waterways. It was, with the engine it was suitable for rivers. And the boat in question is a Nauticus 27. Probably a good name. Nauticus means all things nautical, basically. So it was a good name for a boat, and as I said, it was the Nauticus 27. And I believe it was in around about 1969 that a company, Malcolm Thomas Plastics Limited of 26 Abbey Manufacturing Estate, Mount Pleasant, Alperton, Middlesex, set up this small boat building company, and obviously had the moulds produced and started making the Nauticus 27 inland cruiser. And I have to say, it was quite a popular boat in its day. They continued it on at least until round about 1976, and I've taken some of these details. If you're interested, or you have a Nauticus, or you're thinking about buying one, or you're just looking at one, there is an interesting owners forum, and some of this history has been taken from that forum. A link I will put to that forum in the description below if you want to have a look around that and have a bit more read about it. Obviously this is a little bit of a condensed video for time wise. So yeah, Malcolm Thomas Plastics carried the boat on from around about 69 to 1976. It's estimated they probably built round about 240 boats in that time. I wonder if it might be a few more than that, but who knows? I suppose the records are long gone. And but a very obviously, as are all my videos, I should be putting photos up of this particular boat and some old ads of this boat and such like as we go on through this video. In my view, and I think many other people's views at the time, people in those days had a lot more experience of this type of boat than I did then. They always seemed a very, very well constructed boat. And because this boat was solely designed for the inland waterways of the UK, which I'll probably come on to a little bit more later on. But I mean, I have a review here in the, if you're interested, it's in the April Waterways World of 1973. Nauticus hull is a one-piece timber reinforced GRP moulding laid up by hand. It's sensibly shaped and pleasing in appearance, with an elegant flare to the bows, which I have to agree with. It always looked quite an elegant boat. The bottom has a shallow V shape, 6 reinforcing rubber strakes, and a very good hefty keel, making the boat very stable. Layup is sides 8-ounce laminate, bottom 10-ounce laminate, keel 15-ounce laminate. Twin varnish mahogany rubbing strakes partly protect each side. And what I gauge, I never owned one of these boats, but I did go on many of them. I even took one out on the river. One of my friends owned one, so I've had experience of helming it and what it manoeuvred like. And I have to say, as I've said before, I had a narrow beam Freeman 22 for many years, which I really enjoyed and was a super boat. And even with the I fitted a new diesel engine in that, and even with the new diesel engine, fitted midpoint in the boat, then it had a 15-gallon diesel tank and a 15-gallon water tank at the aft. The batteries and all, with all the weight on, it was still quite, being a 610 beam, it was still quite tippy and rocky when you went to get on it, as a lot of 6'10" narrow beam glass fibre boats can be. But I have to say the Nauticus 27 was always a very, very stable boat when you stepped on it. Why that was, perhaps just the design of the hull, the layup, the thickness. And most of the early boats came with a standard water motor, petrol 1100cc, which I think was about 39 brake horsepower, which was the basically the Marinised Ford Escort engine of the day. A good petrol engine. Obviously, back in the late 60s, early 70s, there weren't the small diesel engines around. Diesel engines were big, heavy, and quite expensive. So a smaller petrol engine fitted the bill. Our thoughts have changed somewhat a little bit about petrol engines on boats. They're still perfectly safe as long as they're maintained and certain rules are followed with them. I don't have any problem with that at all. Now you might find a vast majority have been re-engined anyway and have a diesel engine. There was later on there was options. I think you could have a BMC diesel engine. You could have the water motor Sea Panther diesel engine, and on the 27 this was fitted to a Z drive. So the engine was right at the back of the cockpit under the floor, and then a Z drive went out, and that was the sort of propulsion, which made a very manoeuvrable boat. It was lovely to steer, to helm, and the beautiful thing about this boat, in my view, was it was so easy to reverse. If you got in a tight spot and you had to manoeuvre backwards, whereas a Freeman 23, a Freeman 24, Freeman 22 even, with an inboard, with a standard shaft-driven propeller, put it in reverse, and it was a real knack. You could do it, and you could master it with gentle throttle and the gear lever, but you obviously had the paddle wheel effect, wanting to send you one way into the bank or out from the bank all the time. Whereas with the engine at the back, connected to the Z drive unit, which I think was a Z-tronic that they used unit, which is basically like an outboard leg connected to the engine, that gave you really good reverse on these boats. They were very well appointed inside, excellently finished off, with a dinette, formica, a toilet compartment. Most of them came, the 27s came with hot water, didn't have a shower. I think some of the later boats that were made by another company under the same name as Nauticus had showers, but very, very well appointed. A full little Flavel 2-hob burner and oven. pumped water, and as I say, hot water as well. By 1973, and this review in Waterways World, they were starting to produce a Nauticus 22, which was a 22-foot boat, which there again was the same looks, the same, design as the 27. It was just a cut down version, 22-foot version, and most of the 22s Nauticuses were built with the outboard motor well, so you bought an outboard motor and put that on, and there again, like a lot of the Normans and that other kind of boats of that era. The 22 there again was a lovely small. I think for a 22-foot boat, it was a lovely style and size boat. I don't think there was many produced. I haven't got any facts and figures on how many of the 22 foots were produced. They certainly, there again, as I say, this write-up, it's a review by Harry Arnold in the April Waterways World of 1973. If you're looking or thinking about buying one, I know this is when the boat was new, but it's a very good review. He raves about it, and would you believe this? The boat that he tried and reviewed in this article only had a 6 horsepower outboard motor on it. He does say, whereas that was adequate for a canal which doesn't have necessarily any flow on it, he would like probably a 10 or 15 or even a 20 horsepower outboard on for river use, which I solely agree on that. The boats, the 27 and the 22, were sold through a company that I've talked about before in these other videos of this era. Was a company called Ladyline that was, by 1974, I'll quote again from my 1974 London Boat Show catalogue, and it says Ladyline Limited, Britain's largest retailer of boats and engines, and on the Ladyline stand of the 1974 boat show was the very attractive Nauticus 27 and 22, the luxury canal and river cruisers. At that time in 1974, with including VAT from Ladyline, the Nauticus 27 was £3,954.50, and the Nauticus 22 outboard version, so that meant you had to buy an outboard to put on this didn't include the outboard, was £2,612.50. If you wanted the 1100cc water motor petrol inboard in the Nauticus 22, which you could have, that took the price up to £3,382.50. Comparing that, say, with a new Freeman 23 at £3,335.20. So you can see they weren't a cheap boat, but you got a nice, quite a long, really usable 27-foot boat with a aft cockpit, and a full inboard engine, full engine controls, and a nice aft cockpit. They always had 2 helm seats fitted as well. So a very well appointed boat in my view. And the key issue here I'm referring to is there is still many of these Nauticus 27s and 22s out there, and I've had a brief look online before I've done this video, and the price of them today range from between, I've seen one at a giveaway price that wanted work doing to it, £3,000, right up to 10,000 plus for a really good example boat. On these early boats, the top half of the superstructure was a light blue. And if you see an all white Nauticus, which there are some out there, it's either obviously been painted, which it could have been, or it's a later boat. After 1976, and from June 1977, advertisements in Waterways World magazine, Triton Boats Limited of Castleham Road, St Leonard's on Sea, Hastings, East Sussex, had started to produce the Nauticus 27 and 22. And this seemed to last for approximately 2 years, I believe. So they made some more boats, and under the Triton name, they were still branded as Nauticus. They were you know, still virtually the same spec, and still built, you know, to a very good quality. Boating was slightly different, as I've explained before. You know, you didn't buy a boat necessarily to live on. It was a hobby. It was something to play around with in the summer evenings, or go away for a week or 2 weeks holiday on it, you know, to go to it at weekends. It was purely a bit like a caravan, a bit like a touring caravan. It was purely for leisure, and it was not designed, you know, to be lived on. And but the boating market has changed somewhat, I feel. But if you're still looking for a boat like that, I would certainly, you know, have a look at some Nauticus. You know, they are out there, and as I say, particularly with a more modern diesel engine fitted to a 27, I think it'd be an absolute super boat. When we were buying boats as a family, we went to Ladyline at Braunston and saw Ken Yates, who was the manager there, who I later on got quite friendly with when he had a boat sales outlet just down near me at Northampton. He worked a price out of buying a new Nauticus in those days. They did some great finance deals at Ladyline, and they really tried, you know, to sell you a boat and make it as easy as possible. They were trying to sell boats, and they also had a very good after sales service at Ladyline. But we didn't. We pursued and went down another route and actually bought a Norman 27. Then I found this leaflet, which I must have picked up. There again, I will put this up in picture form for you. I must have picked this up from a boat show of some description, whether it's the London Boat Show or the Birmingham Boat Show. And I don't know, there's no year on this, but I'm guessing it must be probably early 80s. We have Nauticus Limited of Miller House, Lee Road, Waltham Abbey, Essex, and they are building the Nauticus 27, and it's much the same boats with much the same engine. I see here they're fitting a Ford 1600 engine, which is the bigger one, but apart from that, it's really the same style and layout and layup of the same boat that was built, you know, way back in 1969. So I don't know how long they continued onwards. Not very long, I assume. On the forum for Nauticus, it does say that at this time the moulds were purchased by Davidson Brothers and were unused for about 2 years, and then they were resold in 1980. So I assume probably this is the firm that they were sold to in 1980 that then built this later Nauticus 27. But eventually, interestingly enough, the moulds were sold again, and the present hull of the Viking, still, you know, or they still were being manufactured, Viking GRP river and canal cruisers. The Viking 28 actually was taken from the Nauticus mould And the Viking 32-foot version is an extended version from the same mould. So it's amazing that these moulds have, continued on and are still producing boats till very recently, and still might be. I don't know whether the Viking 28 is still in production, but if so, there's still throwbacks to the good old Nauticus 27 that dates right back to 1969. As I say, in my view, an absolutely splendid boat. I can't fault it. We had many down here on the Nene, or the Nen, whichever you want to call it, because they were such a good river boat. I think they could do roundabout with the water motor 1100cc petrol engine. They could do 10 knots comfortably, and obviously, if you've got a bit of on rivers, obviously you've got a current there. That was no problem to them, and as I say, so easy to handle and manoeuvre. But I'm rambling now, as I do, and this video is getting way too long, as always. I think I've covered all the aspects. Basically, I suppose I could have probably done this video in 3 or 4 minutes by saying, if you are looking for a GRP boat and you want the capabilities to be able to go on narrow canals and rivers, and you want something that isn't too small, obviously 27-foot length is quite a nice size, very, very, very manoeuvrable for 2 people. Even 1 person could manage it if you got used to it. Go and have a look at some. Have a look what's there online. There are plenty of still that turn up for sale. You might have to travel a distance to look at one, and even be prepared to do a little bit of work on one. But by all means, if you are looking for a really good riverboat that stood the test of time, and as I say, has that option of going on narrow canals, I would certainly suggest go and have a look at the Nauticus 27, or if you can find a Nauticus 22. I don't think they were made in such great numbers, the 22, but they are still out there as well. A really good boat, and to be honest, as this title says, they probably were the best boat in the inland waterways class of boat in their day. And with that, I will wrap this video up and say thank you for watching, and please think about subscribing. It does help us smaller channels, and I'm going to do some other boating videos and update my own boating story. And I'm also looking at whether for most people we've been priced out of the market on smaller boats, but they're videos to come in the future. So as always, thanks for watching. Please do like and comment. Did you own a Nauticus? Do you own a Nauticus now? How do you get on with it? Do you like it? Would love to hear from anybody with any other experiences of the Nauticus 27 or 22. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll be back with some more videos in the very near future. Until then, thanks for watching, and my best wishes, and bye for now.